Managing and Caring for the Self. Welcome to our final chapter, Managing and Caring for the Self. Over the semester, we have engaged with the self through different frameworks and the 6 dimensions of the self. Now, we shift our focus from understanding the self to applying that understanding. For you, as future educators and site professionals, this is the most critical transition. We must view the self not as a fixed entity, but as a living, dynamic project that requires conscious management and consistent, ethical care. Your effectiveness as a teacher, your resilience in the face of institutional challenges, and your ability to inspire growth in your students all depend on your capacity to master these skills in your own life. This capstone lesson will equip you with the advanced psychological frameworks and practical strategies to excel as students now and thrive as competent, resilient professionals later. Learning to be a better student, the science of academic success, what happens during learning and metacognition. Learning is fundamentally a process of physical transformation, not just information storage. At the neural level, it involves synaptic plasticity, where repeated engagement with material strengthens the connections between neurons, effectively rewiring your brain. This requires active engagement, often involving struggle, which signals the brain to consolidate temporary memory traces into stable, long-term structures. Genuine behavioral change comes from deliberate practice, focused, high-effort work that consistently pushes you outside of your comfort zone. Specifically, this optimal area of learning is the zone of proximal development, ZPD. The ZPD is a core concept developed by Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky. It defines the space between what a learner can do without assistance and what they can do with guidance or collaboration from a more knowledgeable peer or instructor. For example, a student might be able to calculate basic area formulas on their own but can only grasp complex calculus concepts when a teacher provides scaffolding, models a strategy, and offers feedback. Learning is most effective when instruction targets this zone, making the challenging tasks achievable. The key to mastering this process is metacognition, often attributed to developmental psychologist John Flavel. Metacognition is the ability to think about your thinking, and is often defined as knowledge and regulation of one's own cognitive processes. This skill is not passive, it involves a cyclical process of self-monitoring and self-regulation. Effective learners actively engage in 3 phases: planning, selecting the best strategy for a specific learning goal, monitoring, checking comprehension and evaluating the strategy's effectiveness in real time, and evaluating, critically judging the outcome and adjusting strategies for future tasks. This awareness is what separates the effective student from one who simply puts in time without focused intent. Additionally, effective study strategies prioritize active engagement, such as retrieval practice, the act of deliberately recalling information from memory, which powerfully strengthens the memory trace, and spaced repetition, which distributes learning over time to prevent the weak, temporary consolidation that results from cramming. The practical application of metacognition is encapsulated in self-regulated learning, SRL. SRL is an active, constructive process in which learners take ownership by setting goals, monitoring their performance, and strategically adjusting their behaviors, cognition, and motivation to achieve their objectives. Based on Zimmerman's cyclical model, SRL is a dynamic process beginning with the forethought phase, where the student analyzes the task and sets both process and outcome goals. This moves into the performance phase, where the strategy is executed and progress is monitored against the initial goals. Crucially, it concludes with the self-reflection phase, where the learner critically judges the outcome and the effectiveness of their efforts, feeding back into the next learning cycle. This self-correction mechanism is the engine of continuous academic improvement. To deepen your understanding of the concepts discussed in this section, these video resources move beyond theory to illustrate the practical, evidence-based methods of managing your learning. I highly encourage you to view these as immediate applications of metacognition and self-regulated learning, SRL. Critiquing the learning styles myth. Tessia Marshak challenges the idea that matching instruction to a learning style works and argues that the best strategy depends on the content itself, implementing effective study strategies. This guide provides concrete, science-backed tips like retrieval practice and spaced repetition to study more effectively and maximize retention. The strategy of studying smarter, not harder. Kiki Fan shows how success is achieved through efficient, intelligent strategies aligned with how the brain learns, illustrating the core of self-regulated learning. Taken together, these resources provide a unified message. The most effective student is not the one who works the longest, but the one who knows how to learn, understands why certain methods work, and takes active charge of managing their own cognitive process. The importance of goals and Locke's goal-setting theory. Goals are the psychological fuel that provides both a sense of purpose and a standard for evaluation. They activate our motivation systems, moving effort from an undirected activity to a purposeful pursuit. Based on Locke's goal-setting theory, we know that the most effective goals are both challenging and highly specific. Vague intentions, such as do my best, correlate with low effort and performance because they lack clear targets. Goals must define what success looks like and require focused effort to attain it. Illustration: a vague goal is I will study hard for the final. A goal aligned with Locke's theory is I will correctly answer 85% of the practice questions on the course material by Friday morning. This specific target provides a clear feedback loop and intensifies effort. Bandura's self-efficacy and Dweck's mindset. Our belief in our ability to reach those goals is profoundly influenced by Bandura's self-efficacy, which is the task-specific belief in one's capacity to execute the behaviors necessary to succeed. It is not the same as general confidence or self-esteem. Illustration: a student may have low self-esteem but high self-efficacy for giving a presentation because they have successfully done it many times before. High self-efficacy is built primarily through mastery experiences, successfully completing the task itself, but is also supported by vicarious experiences, observing peers succeed, and verbal persuasion, encouragement from credible sources. Relatedly, Dweck's mindset theory highlights the contrast between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Illustration: a student with a fixed mindset fails a quiz and concludes, "I'm just not a math person." A student with a growth mindset fails the same quiz and concludes, "My current study strategy for math isn't working, I need to find a new one." The growth mindset fosters resilience and the belief that effort, applied strategically, is the key to mastery. The following supplementary videos bridge the theoretical concepts of motivation with actionable, real-world strategies. They demonstrate that goals are not abstract wishes, they are tools for self-management that require structure, measurement, and persistence. Viewing these will help you translate academic knowledge into personal behavioral change, transforming habits through goal and time management. Yana Savitsky shares her personal story of using specific goals and time management techniques to build self-efficacy and successfully change her academic habits, achieving clarity with the single-page goal method. Sarah Glova presents a technique to simplify and manage complex objectives by consolidating and prioritizing them onto one single page. Setting the right goals, the OKR framework. John Doerr introduces the Objectives and Key Results (OKR) framework, a professional system for setting ambitious, measurable goals. The collective message of these talks is that motivation is not a feeling, but a system. Success is managed and engineered by consciously applying structured frameworks to personal effort. Stressors, responses, and maladaptive behaviors. Stress is the body's nonspecific physiological and psychological reaction to any perceived demand or threat. Prolonged exposure to stressors leads to a predictable three-stage response detailed in Selye's general adaptation syndrome: GAS, the initial alarm reaction, the extended resistance phase, and, finally, exhaustion. When individuals fail to engage in effective coping, they often turn to maladaptive stress behaviors, short-term relief strategies that actively undermine long-term health and coping capacity. Examples include substance misuse, alcohol, excessive caffeine, or nicotine, avoidance behaviors, procrastination, social withdrawal, excessive screen time, and emotional eating or restricting. These behaviors typically perpetuate the cycle of stress by hindering problem solving and compromising the body's ability to enter the restorative phase. Effective coping must prevent this shift from healthy activation to destructive evasion. Stress and Filipinos. The social and cultural dimensions. Stress is never purely individual. It is deeply shaped by cultural context. In the Filipino context, strengths include strong relational coping, pakikipagapwa, where support is readily sought from family and community. However, cultural pressures can also be significant stressors. For instance, the burden of utang na loob, debt of gratitude, can create immense pressure for self-sacrifice and meeting familial expectations. Similarly, the concept of hiya shame can inhibit individuals from seeking necessary mental health support, leading to internalizing distress for fear of being judged or appearing weak to their social network. A balanced approach requires leveraging the strength of social support while actively guarding against cultural pressures that lead to professional and personal burnout. Taking care of the self. The need for self-care and compassion. Self-care is not an indulgent luxury, it is an ethical and professional imperative. An impaired teacher cannot be an effective, present, or patient guide for students. A stressed IT or computer science professional will not be as effective and efficient compared to when he or she is relaxed. This form of care involves concrete actions like setting firm professional boundaries, e.g., protecting non-work time, and actively managing emotional and cognitive energy, not just managing time. The psychological anchor for this is Kristin Neff's self-compassion, a highly effective resilience strategy that offers a robust alternative to high self-esteem, which is often contingent on external success. Self-compassion is fundamentally about how we treat ourselves when we fail or suffer. It has three interconnected components: self-kindness versus self-judgment. Instead of harshly criticizing yourself for a mistake, you respond with warmth and understanding, just as you would to a close friend. Common humanity versus isolation. This is the recognition that suffering, failure, and inadequacy are an unavoidable part of the shared human experience. This perspective counters the feeling that I am the only one struggling, which is a hallmark of depression and anxiety. Mindfulness versus over-identification. This involves holding painful thoughts and emotions in balanced awareness without suppressing them or exaggerating them. The goal is to observe the feeling without becoming consumed by it. Practicing self-compassion significantly lowers rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout, making it a non-negotiable skill for maintaining professional longevity. The additional video materials below provide crucial, actionable insights that complement our discussion on stress management, coping, and the non-negotiable need for self-care and self-compassion. They move beyond the stress response itself to show you how to actively build internal and external defenses against professional burnout and emotional exhaustion, protecting the brain from chronic stress. Nikki Kortweg explains how chronic stress physically impacts the brain and offers practical strategies for building cognitive resilience, the missing ingredient in self-care. Portia Jackson Preston argues that true self-care is not indulgence but the essential, ethical work of setting boundaries and giving yourself self-permission. Taking charge of your mental health. Cheryl Tan offers a relatable model for actively monitoring one's emotional state, recognizing signs of distress, and taking agency over mental well-being. The following supplemental videos collectively reinforce the idea that motivation is not a feeling, it is a management system. Through these materials, you will see the practical tools for execution. The ultimate challenge presented here is to stop waiting for motivation to arrive and start engineering it through structure, clarity, and focused effort. Your professional success as an educator or a professional from sight will require you to not only teach content but to teach your students how to manage their own motivation systems. Start by mastering your own. The interpersonal and capable self, psychological capital, PsyCap, beyond knowledge and skills. Professional success relies heavily on psychological capital, PsyCap, a positive psychological state that is unique because it is measurable, developable, and strongly linked to desired workplace outcomes like performance and satisfaction. PsyCap is characterized by the four components that spell hero, hope, the perseverance toward goals, and, when necessary, the belief that alternative pathways can be generated to achieve those goals, waypower and willpower. Efficacy, the confidence in one's ability to exert effort and take on challenging tasks successfully, resilience, the capacity to bounce back from adversity, failure, conflict, and negative change, adapting successfully to stress, optimism, making positive attributions about current and future success, viewing setbacks as temporary and specific rather than permanent and pervasive. The importance of PsyCap is that, unlike fixed personality traits, it is a state-like variable that can be nurtured and developed through training and focused interventions. For educators, this means their own well-being and their students' potential can be enhanced by deliberately building these four internal psychological resources. The self in a social context and deliberate practice. Vygotsky's emphasis on the social nature of the mind reminds us that the self is fundamentally interpersonal and shaped by culture, language, and social interaction. Our ability to manage and care for ourselves is heavily contingent upon the quality and availability of our relationships. Therefore, seeking and providing mentorship and peer support are not peripheral activities. They are core methods of self-management that allow us to externalize problems, internalize others' effective strategies, and regulate emotional distress. The achievement of professional mastery requires a nuanced understanding of learning beyond simple effort. Deliberate practice, as theorized by Anders Ericsson, is not merely accumulating hours, but engaging in highly demanding, focused practice coupled with specific, immediate feedback designed to correct one's weaknesses. This is how expertise is built. This means structuring professional development around purposeful skill acquisition, using lesson reflections and student outcomes as data points for constant, focused refinement, thereby ensuring that your experience leads to genuine, evidence-based expertise. We began this course by examining the self through lenses like philosophical frameworks, Plato, Descartes, Hume, psychological frameworks, Freud, Erickson, James, sociological frameworks, Mead, Cooley, and anthropological frameworks, culture and self. We then dedicated the midterm to the concrete realities of the self's manifestation through the 6 dimensions of the self: the physical, material, digital, sexual, spiritual, and political selves. This final chapter, Managing and Caring for the Self, is the ultimate capstone because it is the synthesis of everything that came before. It is not enough to know you have a physical self, you must master stress management to protect it. Every dimension and every framework we studied is a project that requires conscious management. The self is complex, dynamic, and constantly evolving. Therefore, the work of self-understanding is never truly finished. The final, persistent, and crucial challenge for all of you is to continuously and actively seek to answer the question, who am I? Your commitment to managing and caring for the self is your greatest tool in approaching this lifelong question with integrity, competence, and compassion.